So we are recording now, and I want to show you today how to use Apple Motion to create a YouTube button, a YouTube subscribe button. The easiest thing would be maybe use it as a title. We start out with the Motion project in 1080p, 30 frames per second, 10-second duration. That's like the default, but it automatically fills out here when you have this or use it for the very first time. Now, this is the Motion window here. We have here an inspector tab where it shows the details of the items that are in here, listed in here, and also listed down here. So they're listed in here like in Photoshop in those layers. On the right side you can see them, how they look like. And down here you can see how they are animated over a timeline. And here we have like a grid. I don't need the grid in the moment. I can go to view and can change my overlay and ruler, overlay, guide, snap settings, right? So I do not want the grid on right now. This is safe zones here. You don't need those, but just leave them on there if you have them. If you don't have them, don't worry about it. We want to make a YouTube subscribe button that contains the YouTube play button in theory. And as it says YouTube, it's a tube from a tube TV, like those old ones. So I'm going to get the rectangle tool here and make a rectangle that has the dimensions in an aspect ratio of 4:3. How would I do that? I go here to shape. It's talking about the shape here on the right. I change the color to red. That's what YouTube has there, a red button, right? And there is the geometry of this. And we look at the size. And right now it's 300 by 186. So if I want 4:3, I would have a 400 width and a 300 height. This is just a number I made up, and 4:3, so 400, 300. That's how those tube TVs had the size of them. Now in this basic geometry, you can also check the roundness. Like this or that, like as round as you want it, right? Those TVs were super round. Okay, what is also very helpful always is to name your stuff, right? So this rectangle, what has now round edges, round corners, I'm sorry, is called rectangle in here. Now I'm gonna rename this to tube, because, you know, those old TV tubes, that's what it is. What we want in the group above, this whole thing will be the YouTube play button. I don't need to talk about YouTube in here because our whole project is YouTube play button. Okay, so there we go, tube and the play button we want, but we don't have any play yet. So let's make some play, okay? Go here to the Bezier tool and we're gonna make a triangle. And if you hold the shift key, it will be in line with things, but I on purpose make it crooked. Let's do this. So this is my play button, okay? It's out of angle, isn't that nice? So here, play graphics, play icon, play icon. Oh, that's what that is, right? Okay, so now both together are in one group, making up the play button. And in the property section of this, I can, here, this one, I can see its status and it's in the middle. You see it's here, the anchor of it. So maybe we want to center all this in there. We can do that. That's the tube, right? If you want to center it, you can click 0, 0 here. Then the tube goes to 0, 0. And then we have the play icon. If you don't want to type all this, you can do here say reset parameters, and then that goes into the middle. Now, since our shape is so odd, it's not really our good middle. I mean, that's maybe better. Here. Okay. So now if we're on the play button here and we have a 0, 0, it's right in the middle of our stuff. But we don't want that. We want it here on the side or down here maybe. Who knows where we want it in our picture later. This is maybe good. Okay, so next step. We could animate this thing if we want to do this first. Or we can make the whole graphic first and animate later. So let's do that. We need to have a new group here. Right click, say new group. And this group will be our subscribe tag. Subscribe tag. Where the part subscribe is the text where it says subscribe. Here, let's type here subscribe. Now, a few of you will say, oh, what font do you use? Where do you get the font? Oh, I need this font. Calm down. Inspector again, here, inspector, text, format, font, Roboto. Right, okay, so that's available at Google Fonts. So I do put a link down here in the description where you get this font for free. And we do black italic. And we make it much bigger so that it looks nice in relation to the play button here, right? Let's align this centered, okay? There, and then let's put it here in a spot where we think it looks good. Okay. Now, this is white text, and I think it would be best to from here to pull out a rectangle that is white. So the text should not be white, we should change the color. So go to appearance, and we need to pick a nice color for the text. I would go with gray, nickel tint, steel, iron, tungsten. Tungsten sounds fancy. Okay, there we have that. And now we need this rectangle around it. Go to this rectangle icon again, and so it starts in here and goes up to here. Okay. Now, this rectangle is on top of the text. That's not good. We want to put it underneath. We also want to name this thing. So this is the tag that pulls out in my animation later. The tag has a geometry here. And let's also do the tag rounded. Not as much, like this much. 29, okay? Now, this whole thing is still on top of the play button. It should be underneath so that it covers this area here, okay? When I look at this here, at the size of it, I want this a little smaller. Here, let's type in 200 and the width 1200. Doesn't that make sense? Huh? Isn't that beautiful? And the roundness, we want 30 to have plain numbers. Does that make you happier when those numbers are nice and not some weird fractions? Okay. Let's take our play button and put that on top of everything here. There. So now it's underneath. Okay. If we animate our tag, go here in properties, scale the X property. If we scale that down, then we see two things. Now watch this. The roundness here, when you become smaller to 1%, the roundness doesn't stay. The roundness becomes less and less round, like awkward. Okay? That's one thing. And the other thing is, when you scale it, it scales around the center of this here, around the anchor point. We're going to fix that. Let's do that first. Let's move the anchor point from here to the side here. We do that over here with the anchor point tool. There's a red arrow, and we can just move it to the beginning of our rectangle here. And if we now change the scale, it changes from the anchor point out. Isn't that amazing? 100%. Now we have only one problem left, that the rounding here becomes more and more flat the more we make this smaller. In order to change that, we go in here and say roundness, preserve scale. We turn that off. We don't preserve the scale. So if we go back to our X scale here, and we scale it, then you can see that the roundness stays the same. It does not change. So that makes this look much better. Let's go back to 100%. Okay, now we have our play button and the subscribe tag together ready. This is one piece, or we can group it and we can call this YouTube subscribe button. Pop out tag if you want. Okay. In here now, in this basically, if you want master thing, we can scale this to whatever size we want. We can put it wherever we want on the screen. Let's put it back to 100. We need to animate this on our timeline from left to right. If we go across here, nothing is going to happen. So we want to animate. How and what do we want to animate? Let's go in here. So first of all, the button. We don't want the button to just be there. We want it to pop like a soap bubble or something. Okay, so we are taking care of the play button here. This one there. Okay. We have this selected, and then we say we want to add a behavior, and we want to change the parameter of this button, and we pick the overshoot behavior. Now, we see in our timeline that the overshoot behavior goes from the very left to the very right. There are several ways where you can change and limit this in the timeline. You can grab the right side and move it over, then it's just from here to here, or you go with your play button to the moment where you want this to be finished, the behavior there, and then you push the O button on the keyboard to cut it off there. So now my overshoot thing goes from here to here, but as we can see, it doesn't know anything yet. It doesn't know what to overshoot. Here, overshoot behavior apply to nothing, none. So we need to select what we want. We go to properties, transform tool, scale all. So now all scale X, Y, and Z are affected by this overshoot behavior, but again, we don't see anything happening here. So let's look at the values. We have a start value of 0 and the end value of 0. So that means 0 change to our object with this overshoot. We don't want to have a change at the end. At the end, we want it to have no change. So it's like it is now. But in the beginning, we want it to change. It can either be larger or smaller, right? So we want negative start value of, let's say, minus 100. That means we can see this animation down here, that the button comes out of nowhere, small, goes up, goes up, goes up. It's way too bigger than we want, and then it goes smaller again. Too small, too big, too small, and then just right. And we can see this down here in our animation there. The buttons I push here. Fits the visible curves into the windows down here. We can do what here? Move our window a little smaller here. Then we have more vision in this case, right? So it starts up here at the regular, as the size as we designed it. We start out with our start value as minus 100, so it's down here. minus 100% size is 0, so it has no size, and then it goes up here, gets bigger, 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 bigger. This is the line. The dotted line is where we want to be at the end, so it swings up and down. It swings 3 times. We can change that to more, right? If we do 5 times, then we have 5 of those ripples. Does that still look good? Could be. If you overdo it and say 10, what happens then? It shakes like weird. See, that's too much. So let's do 4 in our case. Still plenty. Okay, now, so we applied this overshoot situation to the button itself. Now, in the beginning here, we don't have the button, just the subscribe thing. So the subscribe we need to change. We don't need the subscribe until the overshoot has finished. That's here. Let's go to our subscribe tag. Here's our tag. And we don't need this to start before this. So we can push the I button, I. That shortens the subscribe tag whole thing. It shortens it to this point. So now it will pop up, right? So we do this animation, and then pop up the subscribe button. This in itself could be already a great animation, but we do a little bit more today to make this more interesting, okay? Now, we still have this tool active, that is to move our anchor point. Let's put this back to normal. You can see here our anchor point is there now. Subscribe is here. So that's not cool. How did that happen by accident? Okay, let's change position to 0, 0. And anchor point 0, 0, that's good. Tag anchor point minus 600. 0, 0. Anchor point 0, 0. Position 0, 0. There, in our subscribe text we want 0, 0. Oh. Now let's go away with the anchor point selection tool and put the subscribe text in the right spot. So sorry about that, that was a little out of whack here, huh? Okay, so we can now animate the subscribe tag, here the tag, we can animate this on the X scale and move it in and out. Oh no, look at that. I undid my anchor point. We want the anchor point of the tag to be here. Boom. There we go. Anchor point. Position minus 600. Anchor point. Minus 600. And then our thing goes here minus 400. I put nice straight lines and numbers in there. So, whoop, and then we pop up. Right. So this thing now, this tag, we can animate here with the X. There it is, okay? Now my text is off again. I need my text more over to the right. Here. There. Okay. We can use this overshoot command to do and use that in the subscribe. So if you go in here, this overshoot, this one here, you could copy and paste it into the tag here. So now you would have the same length and the same up and down situation, but look at this. It does it to the whole thing, right? So it depends. If you like it, then it's perfect. You could also use this overshoot command only for the width, for the Y. So right now it's applied to both to X, Y, and Z properties. But you can say, I want it in X only, right? So that means if you play that, then what does it do? Overshoot copy, properties, transformation, X. I didn't like that. Look at that. That's nuts, right? Let's delete the overshoot copy here. Behaviors, parameters, overshoot. Boom. So the tag is now overshoot. I wonder where it is. Down here. Make this shorter. 2 seconds only. Now we want this to overshoot to transform scale X. And our start value is -100. So that means it's 0, down here 0. So it would go here. And then just go left and right a little. I'm gonna play this. Okay. So now you have this animation in the X direction. Bouncing, popping, overshooting here, there. But what we have for a problem is that the text still is on top of everything and is not basically either animated or it shows even though there is no there's no white area behind it, and we want the text to only show within the white area. That means we need to mask this. Don't be afraid of mask. The text is the one that we want to mask. So here is the text subscribe. We want to mask that, okay? Add image mask. Very easy. It adds the mask here. It wants to know what the source of the mask is. So what shape does the mask have? The mask is the same as the tag, right? Drag that in there. So now it only shows where the tag is. Usually the tag cuts it off, but it doesn't show the tag anymore because the tag became a mask. Now, if you turn the tag back on, then it shows both. So our full animation now looks like this. If that isn't enough, I don't know what to tell you. Okay, now we have this coming in, coming in there. Now, at the end of our 10 seconds, we want this to disappear. We do this within 1 second. Okay, so our tag is here in a scale of 100%. We mark that with a key here. Push this button and you get a key here. And then we go half a second later here. We now do another key and this thing, we want this 0. So that means from 9 seconds to 9.5 seconds, it folds it in the text. Right? And then we have the play button itself here. We're gonna move the position of it. We just slide it out to the side, or we do the scale. We scale it down to 0. So we have 100% here, and then at the end of our animation out here, we set another key. Go down to, let's say, 1%. That's so tiny you cannot see it. So our out animation would look like this. Suck it in and disappear. Okay. So we have an out animation. And the out animation begins here at 9 seconds. Okay. Let's add a marker there. We are animating in this and that ends here somewhere. Where we don't know for sure. Here, let's see the tag. Here where the overshoot is done. That's here exactly the spot here where we start this whole thing. And then somewhere in the middle we can set another marker to make a poster frame. You know what a poster frame is, like those little icons here, how they should look like in the preview in Final Cut. When you want to preview this graphic, then that would be the poster frame. Okay, let's right click here and say edit marker, and change this marker to a poster frame marker. That's that here. Let's go to the left, that would be this one here, and make this built-in optional. So you can optional make the in animation. Let's go 2 over, this is this marker here at the end. Let's make that a build out option. Okay, so we have a built in, a poster frame, and a build out. Those parameters we can turn on and off later in Final Cut. We do want in Final Cut this whole thing here. We want to be able to change the position of this. So we go in here and say publish the position, publish the rotation of the whole thing, and also publish the scale of it. Okay. Our anchor point in our whole animation is here in the middle. If we put this in here, then we can do things like the rotation here around that point. So that will come in handy later in Final Cut. So now our project is ready to be sent to Final Cut. We do need to give this thing a name, and also we are in the moment, this is a composition and not a title. We can change this here, motion, file, convert project to. Composition is what we have right now. We want this to be a title. The question that comes up, do you want the title source? We don't, no. Say convert. And now when we save it, save as, we can give it a name. So YouTube subscribe button slide out pop. That's what I give it the name. Category on my computer here, we put it in the testing folder, and within the testing folder I can put it in my titles, so then I find it later. Save preview movie if you want to do that. Let's try that. Okay, so now we are in Final Cut, right? We just have to switch to Final Cut and go in the project there. Wow, this is big. So we are in a Final Cut project. Let's remove my stuff here. So we go here to our pop, slide, pop-up, fold. That's not it. Pop, slide, YouTube, pop, slide. No, YouTube, pop, slide, out, pop button. This is what it is. Take this over here. We do have this 10-second animation. And when I play this, you can see here, it comes there, and it comes out like that, and then at the end it will retract as we told it to retract and zoom small. Okay. In the publish parameter section, we can turn the build out off or the build in, right? So when we come in here, it animates there, pops and not. If at one point you don't like that anymore, you can turn the build-in animation off. So now it comes on, off, so there's no animation. Same at the end. This thing at the end, we can turn it off. Or we can turn it back on. Both of them. Okay. Now, we still have the rotation option now. We can rotate this to whatever we want. So it would come in like this. And the scale, right, we can make it smaller, bigger, smaller. And the position, we can move it around. Okay. So here we see I deleted one. That is not there anymore. That's why it's like crying. You can get away with this, I think, if you cancel this and restart it. I think really I did delete that one. Yeah, see, now it's not here anymore. I deleted this earlier. So the one we developed right now was this one here. That's the one we made. And then when I scroll across here, you can see how it would look like. Yeah. You can see I did a few here. So you can do all kinds of great YouTube things, YouTube buttons with Final Cut and Motion. Okay, there we go. So I hope you liked this video, and feel free to subscribe to this, and maybe you'll find one or another video in my playlist where I show some Final Cut and Motion tips and tricks.